My mother-in-law is now in a nursing home. About 2 years ago, we started noticing some issues with her ability to get what's here to here. It's called aphasia. But we learned that the aphasia came on because there were a bunch of mini strokes that had happened. And eventually there were a couple of larger strokes that incapacitated her sufficiently that we first sent her to assisted living and then had to make the decision to send her to a nursing home. Now, that leaves the house. What to do with the house? Now, most of you, or many of you, have had to face this at some point in your life, where a parent or a grandparent either dies or is no longer able to stay there. And lo and behold, somebody's got to do something with the house and all the stuff that's in it. Well, fortunately for the Millville clan, my niece decided she needed a house and was willing to rent Grandma's, which was really kind of nice because then we didn't have to face the selling issue yet. But Sarah didn't want all the stuff. That was Grandma's stuff. And she certainly didn't want it in her 21st century home. So, Sarah moved all of Grandma's stuff that she didn't want out to the garage, a 3-car garage. Well, 2-car garage plus room for a tractor, as only a Millville garage would have. Basically a 3-car garage full of stuff. There was a secretary, there were curio cabinets, there was dining room furniture, there were couches, and then the enormous amount of this and that that all of us have all over the house. Well, neither my husband nor my sister-in-law wanted to tackle all that stuff. It's hard to do that, and I recognize that. But my brother-in-law, who lives in Denver, was coming this summer and said, "Look, I'm there for a week. Let's do something." Thank you, Jim. So, God bless Jim because he organized all that stuff, and we had a garage sale. And in the middle of the garage sale, my sister-in-law tells me, "There's more stuff." Sarah didn't go into the crawl space in the attic. Sarah didn't go into the basement and get all that. So that became my job, to crawl in the crawl spaces in a Cape Cod house. There were 4 of them on, 2 bedrooms upstairs and crawl space on either side. Let me tell you, wasn't my job to figure out what it was. I just hauled it all out. Randy and Ann, his sister, went through all this stuff. And of course, it all has memories. And it's really hard to deal with all the memories. So I hear my husband exclaim, "Oh, look, my toolkit!" He was probably 7 or 8 years old. And it was a Christmas present because Jim got one identical to it. And it's about yay big. It's metal. And you'd open it up, and there were kid-sized tools in it. So he opened it up, and lo and behold, it's not kid-sized tools anymore. It's a whole box full of soldiers, cowboys and Indians, medieval knights, plastic, metal, all of them, about yay tall. He and his friend Michael up the street used to play for hours with those things. Well, guess what came to our house? A toolkit full of little toys to add to our stuff. Now, my mother-in-law, when she was also a stay-at-home mom, decided that china painting would be fun. And she got very good at it. So she made a place setting for 18. Dinner plates, salad plates, luncheon plates, dessert plates, cups, saucers, 3 sets of serving dishes. You see, the intention was to take the whole thing and divide it in 3 parts, one for Jim, one for Randy, one for Ann. A set of 18. Jim and Ann decided they didn't have room for all that, and they really didn't need it. So guess what came to our house? No, not a set for 18, thank the Lord. Sarah wanted some of them. So Sarah got a set of 9, and we got a set of 9 to add to the dishes that I had taken from my mother's when we broke up her house. So anytime you want to borrow dishes, let me know. I have plenty to add to my stuff. Now, I see you guys laughing. And I would gather it's not because you just think this is a funny story. I would gather that most of you are saying, been there, done that. Yep. Don't we all have stuff? And when the end of our time at home comes, guess who gets to take care of it? Our kids. Our kids. It's amazing, isn't it, how much stuff we collect. We have TV shows now about all that stuff, don't we? One of them's called Storage Wars. Now, these are people who have saved stuff beyond what their house can accommodate and have taken them to a storage facility. Now, for one reason or another, they either don't pay the bill or they die and nobody in the family collects what's in the storage facility. But they auction off an unknown quantity of stuff. And it goes to the highest bidder, who opens the door with great excitement, hoping and praying there is something of great value in there so they can make their money back and more for what they've paid for the storage facility. Sometimes there is, sometimes there isn't. Then there's the Hoarders show. You've all seen that one, haven't you? Where there's households, full of so much stuff. There might be a path. I've been in a couple of these houses, by the way. It's amazing. There might be a path from the front door to a seat in the living room or into the kitchen or one seat at a table for a meal. And there's about yay much room available to you to put dishes on. And those people call in the experts who help them make decisions about what to keep and what to toss. Because there is so much stuff, and we are all so emotionally attached to it, that it is very hard to put that stuff in the goodwill pile. We have a Bible story today, a story that Jesus tells. A parable of a rich fool. This rich fool had had quite a successful agricultural career. He had so much grain, he didn't know what to do with it all. What a deal. And his dilemma: give it away, build bigger barns. Give it away, build bigger barns. He decides to build bigger barns. Jesus is pretty critical of this. Now, let me say up front quite clearly that I don't think Jesus has a problem with wealth or success, but I do believe Jesus has a problem with the attitude this guy displays. Now, I'm going to ask you to go back here with me to verse 17, and I want you to count with me the number of times this man in the parable says I or my, and there's the problem. In 17, and he thought to himself, what should I do, for I have no place to keep my crops? Okay, 3 on that page. Okay, somebody hang on to that number. Then he said, I will do this. I will pull down my barns and build larger ones, and there I will store my grain and my goods. How many was that? 6, so plus the 3 is 9. Then I will say to my soul, you have ample goods laid up for many years. Relax, eat, drink, be merry. How many was the total? 11. 11 times in 3 short verses, this guy says, I or my, 11 times. 11 times. And therein lies the problem. He sees his crops as his own. He sees all of his possessions as his. He earned them. He got them. He gets to keep them. He gives absolutely no credit to God for all the stuff he has. He gives no credit to God for having given him all that he needed and more. This poor guy doesn't even have a friend in the world, it would appear, because he has this conversation not with his best friend, not with a spouse, not with even a neighbor. Who did he have the conversation with? His own soul. So he's talking to himself. That's how isolated he's become, how focused he's been on me, myself, and I. And that's the problem. So often, we too get caught up with our possessions, that we earned them, we got them. They're our memories. Nobody else should ever have them. And this guy in the story never once acknowledges God. And that's the problem. He is in many ways a hoarder. He protects what he's got, and he's not going to give it to anybody else. Now, Randy and I both like hummingbirds. Well, we like birds. We love to sit in our glass room on the back of our house or out on the deck and watch the birds. Randy feeds them all the time, despite the fact that we have 4 cats. Yes, a few of them do end up on my doorstep. But we still enjoy watching the birds. And we have, for the last few years, hung a hummingbird feeder outside, right off the deck. We love sitting there to watch this little tiny bird about yay big flutter his wings faster than we can see and just dip his little nose into those little yellow flowers with that wonderful red nectar. Well, last year I discovered that there were a couple of hummingbirds in our yard, and they always seemed to be fighting. An aerial combat, it's called. I learned from her. Actually, I learned from reading, but you reminded me last night. It's called aerial combat. You see, hummingbirds are very territorial. When they find a source of food, like a bird feeder, they're very protective. And this little tiny hummingbird, when he's not sticking his nose into that wonderful little yellow flower with the red nectar on my pole, he flies off to the crabapple tree about 10 feet away, and he sits and he waits. And he waits until another hummingbird comes flying by, and then he takes off after it. There's no way he's going to let another hummingbird get at his feeder. And you see what's happened is this poor little hummingbird has now lost something. He's lost his freedom because he spends his whole life either eating or protecting his food. He can do nothing else. We watch him for hours on end. That little tiny thing sits in that tree. Yeah, they do stop flying occasionally. He sits in that tree, and he protects that feeder as if it's all his. And the poor thing can't get to go out and play little hummingbird games or whatever they play. They are so focused on protecting what they've got that they have absolutely no freedom. Little do they realize they haven't got a thing unless I put that sweet nectar in that little container. We too, like the guy in the story, spend so much time cleaning, fixing, protecting, getting more of stuff that we've got in our homes that we miss God's involvement in the whole thing. How did we get all this stuff? God, in one way or another, gave it to us, provided it for us. You see, all that we have, I don't believe we own a thing. All that we have comes from God. It's on loan to us. Even my mother's china, and my mother-in-law's china, and my china. It's all on loan to me. And so if you ever want to use it, call me. I've got enough china to serve an army. But the first thing we all have to do is acknowledge that what we have came from God to begin with. Whether it came from God, through our ability to earn money and purchase the things, whether it came from God because a parent could purchase those things or make those things and pass them on to us. We need to acknowledge God's part in all of this. Otherwise, we are no different than the guy in the story at all. That hummingbird was really quite foolish, wasn't he? He can spend no time at all doing anything but eating and protecting. And that's what Jesus calls this man in the story. A fool. A fool. Listen to what Psalm 14, verse 1 says. The fool says in his heart, there is no God. And isn't that what the guy in the story did? There's no acknowledgement of a God in any part of his life. None. My friends, there is nothing wrong with having stuff. The problem is, what do we do with it? Do we hold it, possess it, keep passing it on from generation to generation because we can't bear to lose it? Or do we share it? Did this guy in the story need all that grain? Did he need to build a new barn? For me, myself, and I? No. That's the point. And in fact, at the end of the parable, so it is with those who store up treasures for themselves, but are not rich with God. But are not rich with God. You see, the guy in the story, you fool, tonight your life will be required of you. This is the end, guys. So now what's going to happen? You know the phrase, you can't take it with you? You can't. All that stuff, it's going to stay right here. And when we appear before God with empty hands, because you can't take it with you, when we appear before God with empty hands, and God says, well, what did you do with all the stuff I provided for you? And we scratch our heads and say, you provided? I thought I got that. He's just going to shake his head at us and go, really? What did you do with all the stuff I provided for you? Well, I kept it in good repair. I polished it. I made sure it was safe and sound. And what did you do with all the stuff I provided for you? Did you share it with others? Did you use it for the sake of others? I'm going to remind you again, I don't believe that God has a problem with wealth and success. The question is, what do we do with that? What do we do with all that wealth and that success which enables us to have all that stuff? What do we do with it? Do we use it for the sake of the kingdom of God in some way, shape, or form? At the risk of holding myself up as an example, you know, and I've told you before, that I believe my home is a gift from God. There's no reason in the world I need a house with 4 bedrooms, with, way too many spaces for living, way too many couches and TVs. I don't need all that, really, but I have it all. So let me tell you, not only can you borrow my china, but if you have company come and you need a bed, the Millville Motel is always open. I strongly believe in that kind of hospitality. I'm happy to share my home for someone who needs it, with someone who needs a bed. Absolutely happy. That's one of the simple ways that I have chosen to use that gift that God has given me. It's not for me, myself, and I. It is really the Millville Motel. Open to all of you. Open to your friends and family. And sometimes even people I don't know. They've all stayed there. My father gave me a little, it was actually from a Mary Maxim catalog. Mary Maxim is an arts and crafts catalog. And it's actually a picture, I think, of a counted cross-stitch something or other. And it says, it's a cat, and it says, "We take in strays." And he gave it to me and said, "This is you." And it wasn't a reference to the cats. I'm happy to take in anyone because I believe that what I have, God gave me to share with others. I take in strays and all sorts of other people too. How do we use the gifts God has given us? Because there will be a day, my friends, when we will stand before the Lord with empty hands. And you know what's going to happen to all that stuff that we have back on earth? Our kids are going to have to hold a garage sale. Amen.